Hi, everyone. Welcome to another fabulous edition of the Campus Read. My name is Jason Anfinson, also known as Information Jason. I'm a faculty librarian on the Sanford Lake Mary campus of Seminole State College of Florida. Today, I will be reading pages 160 through 184. Page 160, Milky Way. Nora walked onto the stage. At first, she couldn't see the faces because the lights were pointing towards her, and beyond that glare, everything seemed like darkness, except for a mesmerizing Milky Way of camera flashes and phone torches. She can hear them, though. Human beings, when there's enough of them, together acting in total unison, become something else. The collective roar made her think of another kind of animal entirely. It was at first kind of threatening, as if she was Hercules facing the many-headed Hydra who wanted to kill him. But this was a roar of total support, and the power of it gave her a kind of strength. She realized in that moment that she was capable of a lot more than she had known. Wild and free. She reached for the keyboard, sat down on the stool, and brought the microphone a little closer. "Thank you, Sao Paulo," she said. "We love you." And Brazil roared back. This, it seemed, was power, the power of fame, like those pop icons she had seen on social media, who could say a single word and get 1 million likes and shares. Total fame was when you reached that point where looking like a hero or genius or God required minimal effort. But the flip side was that it was precarious. It could be equally easy to fall and look like a devil or a villain or just an arse. Her heart raced as if she were about to set foot on a tightrope. She could see some of the faces in the crowd now, thousands of them emerging from the dark, tiny and strange, the clothed bodies almost invisible. She was staring out at 20,000 disembodied heads. Her mouth was dry. She could hardly speak. She wondered how she was going to sing. She remembered Dan mock wincing as she'd sung for him. The noise of the crowd subsided. It was time. "Right," she said. "Here is a song you might have heard before." This was a stupid thing to say, she realized. They had all paid tickets for this concert, presumably because they had heard a lot of these songs before. "It's a song that means a lot to me." Already the place was erupting. They screamed and roared and clapped and chanted. The response was phenomenal. She felt momentarily like Cleopatra, an utterly terrified Cleopatra. Adjusting her hands into position for E flat major, she was momentarily distracted by a tattoo on her weirdly hairless forearm, written in beautifully angled calligraphic letters. It was a quote from Henry David Thoreau. Quote, "All good things are wild and free," end quote. She closed her eyes and vowed not to open them until she had finished the song. She understood why Chopin had liked playing in the dark so much. It was so much easier that way. Wild, she thought to herself, free. As she sang, she felt alive, even more alive than she had felt swimming in her Olympic champion body. She wondered why she had been so scared of this, of singing to a crowd. It was a great feeling. Robbie came over to her at the end of the song while they were still on stage. "That was effing special, man," he shouted in her ear. "Oh, good," she said. "Now let's kill this and do Howl." She took her head, then spoke into the microphone hurriedly before anyone else had a chance to. "Thank you for coming, everybody. I really hope you all had a nice evening. Get home safely." "Get home safely?" Ravi said in the coach on the way back to the hotel. She hadn't remembered him being such an arse. He seemed unhappy. What was wrong with that? She wondered out loud. Hardly your normal style. Wasn't it? Well, a bit of a contrast to Chicago. Why? What did I do in Chicago? Ravi laughed. Have you been lobotomized? She looked at her phone. In this life, she had the latest model, a message from Izzy. It was the same message she'd had in her life with Dan, in the pub. Not a message at all, but a photo of a whale. Actually, it might have been a slightly different photo of a whale. That was interesting. Why was she still friends with Izzy in this life and not in her root life? After all, she was pretty sure she wasn't married to Dan in this life. She checked her hand and was relieved to see a totally naked ring finger. Nora supposed it was because she had already been super famous with the labyrinths before Izzy decided to go to Australia. So Nora's decision not to go may have been more understandable. Or maybe Izzy just liked the idea of a famous friend. Izzy wrote something under the picture of the whale. All good things are wild and free. She must have known about the tattoo. Another message came through now for her. Hope Brazil was a blast. Am sure you rocked it. And thanks 10 million for sorting out the ticks for Brisbane. Am totally stoked. As we Gold Coasters say. There were a few emojis of whales and hearts and thanking hands and a microphone and some musical notes. Nora checked her Instagram. In this life, she had 11.3 million followers. And bloody hell, she looked amazing. Her naturally black hair had a kind of white stripe in it, vampiric makeup, and a lip piercing. She did look tired, but she supposed that she was just a result of living on tour. It was a glamorous kind of tired, like Billie Eilish's cool aunt. She took a selfie and saw that while she didn't look exactly like the excessively styled and filtered photos on her feed, which had been for magazine shoots, she did look cooler than she ever imagined she could look. As with her Australian life, she also put up poems online. The difference with this life, though, was that each poem had about 500,000 likes. One of the poems was even called Fire, but it was different to the other one. She had a fire inside her. She wondered if the fire was to warn her or destroy her. Then she realized a fire has no motive. Only she could have that. The power was hers. A woman sat next to her. This woman wasn't in the band, but she exuded importance. She was about 50 years old. Maybe she was the manager. Maybe she worked for the record company. She had the air of a strict mum about her. But she began with a smile. Stroke of genius, she said. The Simon and Garfunkel thing. You're trending across South America. Cool. Have posted about it from your accounts. She'd said this like it was a perfectly normal thing. Oh, right, okay. There's a couple of last-minute press things tonight at the hotel. Then tomorrow it's an early start. We fly back to Rio first thing, then 8 hours of press, all at the hotel. Rio? You're up to speed with this week's tour schedule, right? Kind of. Could you just remind me again? She sighed with good humor, as if Nora not knowing the tour schedule was totally in character. Sure, Rio tomorrow, 2 nights, then the final night in Brazil, Porto Alegre, then Santiago, Chile, Buenos Aires, Argentina, then Lima, Peru. And that's the last leg of South America. The next week, it's the start of the Asia leg, Japan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Taiwan. Peru? We're famous in Peru? Nora, you've been to Peru before, remember? Last year. They went out of their minds. All 15,000 of them. It's at the same place, the race course. The race course, sure. Yeah, I remember. Was a good night. Really good. That's what this life probably felt like, she realized. One big race course. But she had no idea if she was the horse or the jockey in that analogy. Robbie tapped the woman on the shoulder. Joanna, what time's the podcast tomorrow? Oh damn, actually it's tonight now. Timings. Sorry, forgot to say, but they only really have to speak to Nora, so you can get an early night if you want. Robbie shrugged, dejected. Sure, yeah. Joanna sighed. Don't shoot the messenger, though it's never stopped you before. Nora wondered again where her brother was, but the tension between Joanna and Ravi made it feel wrong to ask something. So she asked something she should so obviously know. So she stared out of the window as the coach drove along the 4-lane highway. The glowing taillights of cars and lorries and motorbikes in the dark like red and watching eyes. Distant skyscrapers with a few tiny squares of light against a humid backdrop of dark sky and darker clouds. A shadowy army of trees lined the sides and middle of the highway, splitting the traffic into 2 directions. It was if she was still in this life tomorrow evening, she would still expect to perform an entire concert's worth of songs, most of which she didn't actually know. She wondered how quickly she could learn the set list. Her phone rang, a video call. The caller was Ryan. Joanna saw the name and smirked a little. You'd better get that. So she did. And even though she had no idea who this Ryan was, and the image on the screen seemed too blurry to recognize. But then he was there, a face she had seen in movies and imaginings many times. Hey babe, just checking in with a friend. We're still friends, right? She knew the voice too. American, rugged, charming, famous. She heard Joanna whispering to someone else on the coach. She's on the phone to Ryan Bailey. Ryan Bailey. As in the Ryan Bailey. As in the Ryan Bailey of her fantasies. When they talked about Plato and Heidegger through a veil of steam in his West Hollywood hot tub. Nora, you there? You look scared. I'm here on a bus, a big touring bus. Yeah, hi. Guess where I am? She had no idea what to say. Hot tub seemed entirely inappropriate as an answer. I honestly don't know. He panned the phone around a vast and opulent-looking villa, complete with bright furnishings and terracotta tiles, and a 4-poster double bed veiled in a mosquito net. Nayarit, Mexico. He pronounced Mexico in a parody of Spanish with an X as an H. He looked and sounded slightly differently to the Ryan Bailey in the movies. A bit puffier, a bit more slurred, drunker perhaps. On location, they got me shooting Saloon 2. Last Chance Saloon 2? Oh, I want to see the first one. He laughed as if she had told the most hilarious joke. Still dry as ever, no. No. Staying at the Casa de Mita, he went on. Remember the weekend we had there? They put me in the exact same villa. You remember? I'm having mezcal margarita in your honor. Where are you? Brazil. We're just doing a concert in Sao Paulo. Wow, same landmass. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. It was really good, she said. You're sounding very formal. Nora was aware half of the bus was listening in. Ravi was staring at her as he drank a bottle of beer. I'm just, on the bus, there are people around. People, he sighed, as if it was a swear word. There were always people. That's the effing problem. But hey, I've been thinking a lot recently about what you said on Jimmy Fallon. Nora tried to act as if every sentence he said wasn't an animal running into the road. What did I say? About how it just ran its course, me and you. How there were no hard feelings. I just want to thank you for saying that because I'm a difficult effing person. I know that, but I'm getting work for that. The therapist I'm seeing is really effing good. That's great. I miss you, Nora. We had great times, but there is more to life than fantastic sex. Yes, said Nora, trying to keep her imagination in check. Absolutely. We had all kinds of great, but you were right to finish it. You did the right thing. In the cosmic order of things, there is no rejection. There is only redirection. You know, I've been thinking a lot, and the cosmos, I've thinking about the cosmos, I've been tuning in. And the cosmos has been telling me that I need to get my S together. It's balance, man. What we had was so intense. Our lives are too intense. And it's like Darwin's third law of motion. About an action leading to a reaction, something had to give. And you were the one who saw that. And now we're just particles floating in the universe that may reconnect one day at the Chateau Marmont. She had no idea what to say. I think it was Newton. What? The third law of motion. He tilted his head like a confused dog. What? Never mind. It doesn't matter. He sighed. Anyway, I'm gonna finish this margarita because I've got an early training session. Mezcal, you see, not tequila. Gotta keep pure. Got this new trainer, this MMA guy. He's intense. Okay. And Nano. Yeah? Can you just call me your special name for me again? You know the one. Obviously. Yeah, of course. She tried to think what it could be. Rye bread? Play-Doh? I can't. People? She made a show of looking around. Exactly, people. And you know, now that we've moved on with our lives, it seems a little inappropriate. He smiled a melancholy smile. Listen, I'll be there for the final LA show. Front row, Staples Center. You won't be able to stop me. Got it? That's so sweet. Friends? Forever? Friends. Forever. Sensing they were nearing the end of the conversation, Nora suddenly had something to ask. Were you really into philosophy? He burped. It was strange how shocking it was to realize that Ryan Bailey was a human being in a human body that generated gas. What? Philosophy. Years ago, when you were playing Play-Doh in The Athenians, you gave an interview and you said you read a lot of philosophy. I read life, and life is a philosophy. Nora had no idea what he meant, but deep down, as she was proud of this other version of her for dumping an A-list movie star. I think you said at the time you read Martin Heidegger. Who is Martin Hot Dog? Oh, it was probably just press BS. You know, you say all sorts of S. Yeah, of course. Adios, amiga. Adios, Ryan. And then he was gone. And Joanna was smiling at her, saying nothing. There was something teacherly and comforting about Joanna. She imagined that this version of herself liked Joanna. But then she remembered that she was supposed to do a podcast on behalf of the band where she didn't know the names of 50% of its members, or the title of their last album, or any of their albums. The coach pulled up at a grand-looking hotel outside of town. Fancy cars with darkened windows, palm trees wrapped in fairy lights, architecture from another planet. A former palace, Joanna told her, designed by a top Brazilian architect. I forget his name. She looked it up. Oscar Niemeyer, she said after a moment. Modernist. But this is meant to be more opulent than his usual stuff. Best hotel in Brazil. And then Nora saw a small crowd of people holding out their phones with outstretched arms, filming her arrival. You can have everything and feel nothing at Nora Labyrinth. 74.8 thousand retweets, 450 485.3 thousand likes. A silver tray of honey cakes. It was wild to think of this life coexisting with her others in the multiverse. Like just another note and a chord. Nora found it almost impossible to believe that while in one life she was struggling to pay the rent, in another she was causing such excitement among people all over the world. The handful of fans who filmed the tour bus arrived at the hotel were now waiting for autographs. They didn't seem too bothered about the other band members, but they did seem desperate to interact with Nora. She looked at one as she crunched over the gravel towards them. The girl had tattoos and was wearing an outfit that made her look like a flapper girl who had somehow got caught up in a cyberpunk version of a post-apocalyptic war. Her hair was styled exactly like Nora's, complete with matching white stripe. Nora! Nora! Hi, we love you, Queen! Thank you for coming to Brazil! You rock! And then a chant started. Nora! 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 While she was signing autographs in an illegible scribble, a man in his early 20s took off his t-shirt and asked her to sign his shoulder. It's for a tattoo, he said. Really? She asked, writing her name onto the man's body. This is the highlight of my life, he gushed. My name is Francisco. Nora wondered how her writing on his skin with a Sharpie could be the highlight of his existence. You saved my life. Beautiful sky saved my life. That song, it's so powerful. Oh wow. Beautiful sky. You know Beautiful Sky? The fan burst into hysterics. You're so funny. This is why you are my idol. I love you so much. Do I know Beautiful Sky? That's brilliant. Nora didn't know what to say. That little song she had written when she was 19 years old at university in Bristol had changed the life of a person in Brazil. It was overwhelming. This clearly was the life she was destined for. She doubted that she would ever have to go back to the library. She could cope with being adored. It was better than being in Bedford, sitting on the number 77 bus, humming sad tunes to the window. She posed for selfies. One young woman looked close to tears. She had a large photo of Nora kissing Ryan Bailey. I was so sad when you broke up with him. I know, yeah, it was sad, but, you know, things happen. It's just a learning curve. Joanna appeared at her arm and gently guided her away towards the hotel. When she reached the elegant jasmine-scented lobby, marble chandeliers, floral displays, she sat with the rest of the band that were already at the bar. But where was her brother? Maybe he'd been schmoozing the press somewhere else. As she started to move towards the bar, she realized that everyone, concierge, receptionists, guests, was looking at her. Nora was about to finally seize the opportunity to ask about her brother's whereabouts when Joanna beckoned over a man who was wearing a t-shirt with "The Labyrinths" printed across it in a retro sci-fi movie font. The guy was probably in his 40s, with a graying beard and thinning hair, but he seemed intimidated by Nora's presence. He did a tiny bow and shook Nora's hand. I'm Marcelo, he said. Thanks for agreeing to the interview. Nora noticed another man behind Marcelo, younger, with piercings, tattoo, and a big smile, holding record and recording equipment. We'd reserved a quiet space in the bar, Joanna said, but there's people. I think we'd better go do this in Nora's suite. Great, said Marcelo. Great. That's great. As they walked over to the lift, Nora glanced back at the bar and saw the other band members. You know, maybe you'd like to speak to the others too? She said to Marcelo. They remember things I don't, a lot of things. Marcelo smiled and shook his head and delicately said, It works better. This way I feel. Oh, okay, she said. Every eye was on them. and they waited for a lift to arrive. Joanna leaned into Nora. Are you okay? Of course. Yeah. Why? I don't know. It just seemed like you seem different tonight. Different? How? Just different. As they got into the lift, Joanna asked another woman, one Nora recognized from the coach, to bring some drinks from the bar, 2 beers for the podcasters, a sparkling mineral water for Nora, and a chaperina for herself. And I'm going to take a quick drink. Coffee. And bring them up to the suite, Maya. Maybe I am teetotal in this life, thought Nora, as she walked out of the lift and along the plush, salmon pink carpet to her suite. And then as she entered it, she tried to act like it was all perfectly normal. This gigantic room leading to another gigantic room, leading to a gigantic bathroom. There was a vast bouquet of flowers for her with a note signed by the hotel's manager. Wow, she resisted saying as she gazed around the lavish furnishings, the sweeping floor-to-floor curtains, the pristine white bed, the size of an acre, the TV the size of a small cinema, the champagne on ice, the silver tray full of Brazilian honey cakes, and a card informed them. Don't suppose you'll be having any of these, said Joanna, taking one of the little delicacies from the tray. Now you're on that new plan. Harley and I said to keep an eye on you. Nora watched Joanna bite into one of the cakes. Nora wondered how good any plan could be if they didn't involve eating something so clearly delicious on a Brazilian honey cake. She had no idea who Harley was, but she knew she didn't like him. Also, just so you know, the fires are still going on in LA and they're excavating and evacuating half of Calabasas now. But hopefully it won't get as high as your place. Nora didn't know whether to be pleased of the idea of having a house in LA or worried that it was going to go on fire. The 2 Brazilian podcast guys took a few moments to set up their equipment, and Nora sunk herself into the vast sofa in the living area as Joanna, attending to a few rogue crumbs around her mouth with a heavy manicured finger, explained that their music podcast, O Sam, was the most popular in Brazil. Great demographics, Joanna enthused, and the numbers are stratospheric. It's totally worth doing. And she stayed there, watching like a hawk mother as the podcast began. Okay, just a few more pages here, folks. I hope you're enjoying. We're on page 176, the podcast of Revelations. So, it has been a crazy year for you, Marcelo began in his very good English. Oh, yeah, it has been quite a ride, said Nora, trying to sound like a rock star. Now, if I may ask about the album, Pottersville, you wrote all the lyrics, yes? Mostly, yes, Nora guessed, staring at the small, familiar mole on her left hand. She wrote all of them, interjected Joanna. Marcelo nodded with the other guy, still smiling toothily, fiddled about with sound levels via a laptop. I think Feathers is my favorite track, said Marcelo as the drinks arrived. I'm glad you liked it. Nora tried to think of a way she can get out of this interview. A headache, a small stomach ache. But the one I'd like to talk about first is the one you decided to release. Stay out of my life. It seems like a personal statement. Nora forced a smile. The lyrics say it all, really. Obviously, there has been some speculation about whether it refers to, how do you say it in English? Restraining order, offered Joanna, helpfully. Yes, the restraining order, said Nora, taken aback. Well, I prefer to get it all out in the song, and I find that stuff difficult to talk about. Yes, I understand. It is just that in your recent Rolling Stone interview, you talked a little about your former boyfriend, Dan Lord, and mentioned how difficult it was to get the restraining order against him after he stalked you. Didn't he try to break into your house, then tell the reporters that he wrote the lyrics to Beautiful Sky? Jesus! She hovered at the intersection of tears and laughter and managed somehow to give neither. I wrote it when I was still with him, but he didn't like it. He didn't like me being in this band. He hated it. He hated my brother. He hated Ravi. He hated Ella, who was one of the original members. Anyway, Dan is very jealous. This was so surreal. In one life, the life he'd supposedly wanted, Dan was so bored in his marriage to Nora, he was having an affair. While in this life, he was breaking into her house because he couldn't stand her success. He's a D, said Nora. I didn't know the Portuguese swear word for a terrible person. Cuzao. It means someone's a D or an a-hole, the younger guy added, stone-faced. Yeah, well, he's a cuzao. He turned out to be someone else entirely. It's weird. The way when your life changes, people act in different ways. The price of fame, I suppose. And you wrote a song called Henry David Thoreau. You don't get many songs named after philosophers. I know. Well, I studied philosophy at university and he was my favorite, hence my tattoo. And it made a marginally better song title than Immanuel Kant. She was getting into the swing of it now. It wasn't too hard to act a life when it was the one she was destined for. And Howl, obviously, such a powerful song, #1 in 22 countries, Grammy award-winning video with a Hollywood A-list cast. I suppose you're done talking about it? I suppose, yes. Joanna went to get herself another honey cake. Marcelo smiled gently as he pressed on. For me, it seemed so primal, that song. I mean, like you were letting out everything. And then I discovered you wrote it on the very night you fired your last manager? Before Joanna? After you found out he'd been ripping you off? Yeah, that wasn't good, she improvised. It was such a betrayal. I was a big Labyrinths fan before Howl. But that was the one for me. That and Lighthouse Girl. Howl was where I was like, Nora Seed is a genius. The lyrics are pretty abstract, but the way you just let out that rage was so soft and soulful and powerful, and it was all at once. It's like an early Cure fused with Frank Ocean via the Carpenters and Tame Impala. Nora tried and failed to imagine what that could possibly sound like. He started to sing, to everyone's surprise. Silence the music to improve the tune. Stop the fake smiles and howl at the moon. I tried. Nora smiled and nodded as if she knew the lyrics. Yeah, I was just howling. Marcelo's face became serious. He seemed genuinely concerned for her. You've had so much ass to deal with these last few years. Stalkers, bad managers, the fake feuds, the court case, the copyright issues, the messy breakup with Ryan Bailey, the reception of the last album, rehab, that incident in Toronto, that time you collapsed from exhaustion in Paris, personal tragedy, drama, and all that media intrusion. Why do you think the press hate you so much? Nora began to feel a bit queasy. Was this what fame was like? Like a permanent bittersweet cocktail of worship and assault? It was no wonder so many famous people went off the rails when the rails veered into every direction. It was like being slapped and kissed at the same time. I don't know. It's pretty crackers. I mean, do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you had decided to take a different path? Nora listened to this as she stared at the bubbles rising in her mineral water. I think it is easy to imagine that there are easier paths, she said, realizing something for the first time. But maybe there are no real easy paths. There are just paths. In one life, I might be married. In another, I might be working in a shop. I might have said yes to this cute guy who asked me out for a coffee. In another, I might be researching glaciers in the Arctic Circle. In another, I might be an Olympic swimming champion. Who knows? Every second of every day, we are entering a new universe. And we spend so much time wishing our lives were different, comparing ourselves to other people and to go to other versions of ourselves when really most lives contain degrees of good and degrees of bad. Marcelo and Joanna and the other Brazilian guy were staring at her wide-eyed. But she was on a roll now, freewheeling. There are patterns in life, rhythms. It is so easy while trapped in just the one life to imagine that times of sadness or tragedy or failure or fear are a result of that particular existence. That is a byproduct of living a certain way rather than living simply. I mean, it would have made things so much a lot easier if we understood there was no way of living that can immunize you against sadness, and that sadness is intrinsically part of the fabric of happiness. You can't have one without the other. Of course, they come in different degrees and quantities, but there is no life where you can be in a state of sheer happiness forever. And imagining there is just breeds more unhappiness in the life you're in. That is a great answer, Marcelo said, after he was sure she was finished. But tonight, I would say at the concert, you seemed happy when you played Bridge Over Troubled Water instead of Howl. Wow, that was such a powerful statement. It was saying, I am strong. It felt like you were telling us, your fans, that you were okay. And so how is your touring going? Well, it's great. And yes, I just thought I'd send a message that, I'm out here living my best life, but I miss home after a while. Which one? Marcelo asked with a quietly cheeky smile. I mean, do you feel more at home in London or LA or on the Amalfi Coast? It seemed like this was the life where her carbon footprint was the highest. I don't know. I suppose I would say London. Marcelo took a sharp intake of breath, as if the next question was something he had to swim under. He scratched his beard. Okay, I suppose it must be hard for you, as I know you shared that flat with your brother. Why would it be hard? Joanna gave a curious glance from above her cocktail. Marcelo looked at her with sentimental fondness. His eyes seemed glazed. I mean, he went on, after a delicate sip of beer, your brother was such a big part of your life, such a big part of the band. Was. So much dread in a small word, like a stone falling through water. She remembered asking Ravi about her brother before the encore. He's still around. He was here tonight. She means she feels for him, said Joanna. They all feel for him. He was such a strong spirit, troubled, but strong. It was a tragedy how the drink and drugs and the whole life got to him in the end. What are you talking about? Nora asked. She was no longer acting a life. She genuinely needed to know. Marcelo looked sad for her. It's only been 2 years since his death, his overdose. Nora gasped. She didn't arrive back in the library instantly because she hadn't absorbed it. She stood up, dazed, and staggered out of the suite. Nora? Laughed Joanna, nervously. Nora? She got in the lift and went down to the bar, to Ravi. You said Joe was schmoozing the media. What? You said. I asked you what Joe was doing, and you said schmoozing the media. He put his beer down and stared at her like a riddle. And I was right. She was schmoozing the media. She? He pointed over to Joanna, who was looking aghast as she headed over from the lifts in the lobby. Yeah, Joe, she was with the press. and Nora felt the sadness like a punch. "Oh no," she said. "Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe. Oh." And the Grand Hotel bar disappeared. The table, the drinks, Joanna, Marcello, the sound guy, the hotel guests, Ravi, the others, the marble floor, the barman, the waiters, the chandeliers, the flowers, all became nothing at all. Page 182. Just a few more, friends. Thanks for watching and listening. Howl. To the winter forest, and nowhere to go, this girl runs from all she knows. The pressure rises to the top. The pressure rises. It won't stop. They want your body. They want your soul. They want fake smiles. That's rock and roll. The wolves surround you, a fever dream. The wolves surround you, so start the scream. Howl into the night. Howl until the light. Howl, your turn to fight. Howl, just make it right. Howl, 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 howl. MFer. You can't fight forever. You have to comply. If your life isn't working, you have to ask, why? Spoken. Remember when you were young enough not to fear tomorrow or mourn yesterday, and we were just us. And time was just now. And we were in life, not rising through like arms in a sleeve, because we had time. We had time to breathe. The bad times are here. The bad times have come. But life can't be over when it hasn't begun. The lake shines and the water's cold. All that glitters can turn to gold. Silence the music to improve the tune. Stop the fake smiles and howl at the moon. Howl into the night. Howl until the light. Howl, your turn to fight. Howl, just make it right. Howl, 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 howl. Repeat, repeat, repeat to fade. Thank you, everyone. That is my section of reading for the Campus Read Aloud. This has been the Midnight Library by Matt Craig. I did pages 160 through 184. This is Information Jason, your favorite librarian at the Sanford Lake Mary campus of Seminole State College of Florida. Thank you. Have a great day.